Good afternoon and welcome to the Three Deeper Cuts podcast, your lifestyle magazine for the practicing surgical pathologist. I am your host, Chuck G. Every week we bring you something to think about, something to read, or something to listen to. Three Deeper Cuts is brought to you by Formalin Fixed Paraffin Embedded Tissue. Emphasis on the formalin, because without the high exposure to 10% buffer neutral formalin that I experienced during my 4 years of residency in St. Louis, and I wouldn't be able to think about half the crazy things that I post up here at Three Deeper Cuts Publishing. And if you're not a pathologist and you're listening to this right now, welcome. And thank you. Couple of announcements for today. What's going on? It's spring in Texas. It's all good. Had some family in town again this weekend. Pretty excited about that. Checked out the lake north of town. Did some activities with the kiddos, and work is good. Getting increasingly complicated cases. Sometimes you have somebody that shows up off the street with a tumor in their abdomen, and nobody has any idea where it is coming from. That is life as a pathologist. That is life in the trenches of community medicine. So it's on you to figure it out and provide a differential diagnosis. You know it. I know it. And on this podcast, we're talking about it. What else is going on in the life? Eclipse to happen tomorrow, and I'll probably come up, venture out from my subterranean lair and view the eclipse. And other than that, look, I just want to get right into it. So I'm pretty excited. I made a new friend through some other mutual friends on the internet. His name's Imran. He's a practicing hospitalist out on the west coast of the United States. And Imran is a passionate athlete. He helps patients get better. He helps them get more fit, get their weight and diet dialed in. He's also got an interesting life story. He's originally from Barbados, made his way to Florida, and applied to medical school, got in, and kind of navigated a lot of ups and downs, starting his career out as a surgical intern, and redirected his life into a family practice residency, and he enjoyed the hospital aspect of family medicine the most, and now he's a hospitalist. So I think you can learn a lot from Imran about career design, avoiding burnout, and picking aspects of medical practice that are more suited to your personality. So I hope you learn a lot from him. I enjoyed this chat, and I apologize. My voice on the recorded part of the podcast is a little bit tired. We did this episode late at night because that's what we do. All right, so enjoy the conversation with Dr. Imran. Here we go. All right, here we go. So welcome to the Three Deeper Cuts podcast, your lifestyle magazine for the practicing surgical pathologist and all enthusiasts of disease. So I'm excited to introduce to you my friend Imran, who I met on the internet. Imran's a practicing family medicine physician, and I'm glad to meet him. And we're going to talk about life in the trenches of medicine. Imran, thanks for coming on, man.
And yeah, Chuck, thanks for having me on. This is going to be a good little spiel that we're going to do right here.
Yeah, dude. So what were you just talking about? Yeah, so the daily grind in medicine. So you're coming off like a little bit of a gauntlet. For me, it's been a good week, fully staffed. I mean, everything comes down to staffing, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Overflow.
Definitely.
So
yeah,
let's get into your background a little bit, man. I was just kind of curious, like where you started out and how you got to where you are.
Like back to the school time days, like primary school. Or are we talking like medical school?
Yeah, you were overseas, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm actually like originally from Barbados.
Okay.
And then I moved to the States like right after high school.
Okay.
So I kind of hung out in Florida for a little bit, went to community college for 2 years there. Originally started off as like a computer science major, and then I took a wellness course, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I kind of switched over to medicine. Then I went to like FAU, Florida Atlantic.
The Owls.
Yeah. Oh man, you know the Owls.
Oh, dude, I've studied in that library, dude. I got an uncle down in Boca.
Oh yeah, that library is huge, dude.
Yeah, it is, man.
Anyway,
yeah, that's a small world, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I was sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So yeah, I did college, and then I tried to get into med school for like 2 years, dude. I was horrible at testing. Like,
Okay.
yeah. So I took the test like I think like 3 times, got the exact same score, couldn't get into American school, so I went to Ross University. It's in the Caribbean.
Nice.
So went to the Caribbean, took classes, hung out on the beach, and then came back, and I did rotations in the States. So majority of mine I did at like the Cleveland Clinic in Florida. I did a few on the East Coast, like up in Connecticut. And then did the match, and then I actually ended up getting a prelim spot in like general surgery, which isn't actually what I wanted to do, but it was a holding position until I could decide what I wanted to kind of further go into. I always wanted to do like family or emergency medicine. So I'll go to Connecticut for a good year doing surgery, and then I went up and did family medicine over in California, in Modesto. So that's kind of my short little spiel through like education and medical school.
I got you. I'm familiar with Ross. Good friend of mine. He's an oncologist now, but he started out down there.
Oh yeah,
I think. I don't know. Maybe you were on the island together. His name's Ashwin.
sounds familiar. What year did he?
I think he would have. Gosh, I'm getting old, man.
Tell me about it.
I mean, this would have been.
So I graduated like in 2012. That's when I graduated from med school.
That might have been after. Actually, 2012.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Actually, I think that's right about. He might have been a little bit earlier. He got in before me, so.
Okay.
But anyways, you guys get pretty tight down there, right? I mean, it's like a little. Yeah, you're down there together. There's no one else to go.
No, it's like it's kind of crazy because like everyone on campus, and you usually you form a clique and people actually move around together in rotations and you find like spots together and it's pretty. I don't know what like the traditional American school's like, but people get pretty close down there. I'm still friends with a lot of people from med school.
I've heard that. That's a beautiful thing, dude. I think up here it varies year by year. I mean, my class was not quite so close, but we just kind of formed a sub-clique of like 5 people. But there's other classes that were similar to yours that were, for whatever reason, they're just, they just bond real quick.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy because the school was kind of, it was kind of hard. You start off with like 500 people, like at the beginning of the school year. And then by the time you make it to 4th semester, you're down to like 150, just because it's pretty intense on there. A lot of people get weeded out.
Oh, wow. And so where do they go? They just fly back home?
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because you take 2 semesters, you pay money, you take out loans for that, and then you never know what happens to these people later on in life. I mean, I'm sure they get another job, but there's a...
Maybe they're... Maybe they're copywriting on X. Maybe they're on Money X.
Yeah, that would be
shilling courses. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, so anyways, so you wrap up, and I am familiar with the Ross curriculum. You guys, you're all over. It's pretty adventurous. So what was it like being at Cleveland Clinic?
And it was, for me, it was like super stressful. Especially my internal medicine rotation. I don't know. I tend to like kind of aim for pretty high standards, and I was like worried that I wouldn't get a good grade during that. I just remember like I would go to bed like super late at 10, wake up super early, coming around. I was like studying constantly. It was just like, and these are like top tier physicians, and they were constantly like pimping you, and you have to do like presentations, and it's just like very, very nerve wracking. So yeah, it was actually super stressful for me, because I think the stress of not being able to like kind of go about my daily life other than just going to rotations, like I end up like severe headaches. I don't know if I ever told you this before, but like I had like undiagnosed high blood pressure, and that's why I was having severe headaches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just was not able to go to the gym workout. I was eating like crap. I went to the physician at the time that I was seeing, and he kind of just like waved me off. He's like, "Oh, it's probably just stress." I'm like, "Can you check my blood pressure?" And so that was like my first run in with like a bad experience in the healthcare system. But my blood pressure was like almost 180 over 100.
Oh, man. You must have been in your 20s, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 26. It's not because, you know, you're that young, you don't expect someone to have any sort of like pathology. So I ended up getting put on blood pressure medication for a little bit.
Oh, wow. So how long was the Cleveland Clinic section of your rotations?
It was a lot, because what ended up happening was I got to know some of the people over there. Okay. And I ended up doing like electives. I did like gastroenterology. I did colorectal surgery. Did a few others, and I hung out in Miami at the time too. So I stayed there because that's where like I moved over from Barbados to the States. So I knew the area. I did probably like a good, I'd say maybe 3/4 of my rotations down there, just because I got to know the people. Could have probably done a residency there, but I didn't want to do internal medicine.
Got you. So there was a point in there. So did Cleveland Clinic, so that was 3rd and 4th year med school. You're jumping around, doing rotations at different institutions. Then you get a prelim year, and that was in surgery. And we were on a space together, and you had mentioned that things were like so intense, and your default survival mechanism for stress is exercise, which I can totally relate to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious, like, how did you get angioedema from that?
Oh, so I always look back, and I have this habit of going back through my past and like trying to figure out like why certain things happened. And I think what had happened was when I did this rotation, it was a pretty malignant program, like mental, like these guys were hardcore. You get like 8 hours of work, you get like 3 hours of sleep. I like the first month I barely ate. I'd eat like once a day. I lost like 15 pounds in the first month. And then I think like eventually when I got back into the schedule that I could try to adapt and kind of figure out how it would function, I started just like running like 50 to 60 miles a week. I ended up getting like pretty bad like bursitis in my right like thigh. So I started popping ibuprofen for pain control. So like I'm eating like shit food in the, sorry, I don't know if I could.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, so I was just like eating shit food in like the cafeteria, sleeping 3 hours a day, like dealing with the stress of everything. I think I just completely wrecked my health. And then I think what had happened was, I remember specifically what happened. I was hanging out with one of the other residents the night before. I was pounding like alcohol, like beers. That's another way I was dealing with the stress.
Yeah.
But that and a ton of pizza, and then the next day I go to the gym to run on the treadmill. I step on it in like 30 seconds and I start getting hives like all over my body, and then it spread to my neck. I was like, oh, it's spreading to my face. I don't want my airway to close off. So I went to my car and I sat there and I'm like, should I go to the ER? Like, and it was like, I can't like risk this. So I just drove, and like, it's funny because when I was checking in, my face was completely swollen, and the lady's like, oh, what can I do for you? Why are you here? I'm like, do you see my face? Like, and so I don't know, like every time I would try to work out, the same thing would happen again. I get like these hives that would erupt. I think like, at the time, I think I really think I destroyed my gut because I was like drinking pretty just to cope, I think, with everything. And I was exercising way too much, not getting enough sleep. My body just didn't have enough time to recover. And then eventually, I think like what had happened is I got back into the routine of getting sleep, eating better, and it would still flare up, but over time, I think it kind of eventually just went away. And I never like went to another doctor because I think it would have taken them too long to try to figure out what was going on. But I ended up in the ER, IV fluids. They had to give me some epi, some steroids, some Benadryl. I was just sitting there like alone in the bed. I'm like, I can't let this happen again.
Yeah,
and so
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary because you're basically trying to survive, and it's like they take away. So now you're in the situation where your only coping mechanism, other than booze, is God. Like,
isn't that ironic, right?
I had similar kind of meltdowns, and that I don't know. I just somehow squeaked. I just remember I was a second year. No, I just finished my intern year, and I actually did 6 months of a psych residency before I switched out and kind of pivoted. But yeah, there was this one scenario where I think they double dosed my inpatient with insulin, and like her glucose bottomed out, and I'm like sitting here like feeding her turkey sandwiches manually, and like it's just like, serially checking her, and she was like, she had all these other comorbidities and everything. I just remember like that day, I kind of like I kind of snapped, and we went out to a pub, and I just woke up in the ER, and I was like, oh shit, I have to be working like 3 hours.
Oh my God, yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely a wake up call, but dude, the weird thing is that I've talked to like a handful of people, like yourself over the year. We all have similar stories.
Like, yeah, what is that about that students or even in residence? I mean, going in on binders,
It's you just get pent up. I mean, it's like you're living this really austere life. It's not normal to be like reading and studying for that long. And here's my other theory, dude. Here's the so I've read a couple of your newsletters, and you're obviously really into the stuff that you're talking about. We can unpack that in a little bit, but
I appreciate
what I've noticed a little bit just within myself and other people is like anytime you have to do something that you don't really want to do, it does take a psychological price. It might not, you might not feel it in the moment, but there is a price you're paying unconsciously, and it just like builds up over time, and you can't make it as through training without doing a significant amount of stuff that you don't really want to do. It's just the way it is. I mean, you have to be well-rounded in all the basic, disciplines of medicine to just graduate. So plus the lack of sleep. But so 3 hours of sleep at night. This place is hardcore.
They were not complying with the CGME regulations at that point in time.
It's so intense. Dude, do you ever follow that? There's that Peter Attia episode where he's talking about his time at Hopkins, and I could never relate to that because I love sleep. I mean, I'm a pathologist, dude. I sleep all the time. Yeah. But like, I just can't wrap my head around that. Like this guy, I think it was Peter Attia. Yeah, he's just talking about like he would challenge himself, like see how many days he'd go without any sleep, and still.
I find that hard to believe. So during my surgery, I figured out down to a T exactly how much sleep I needed.
Okay,
I could function on 6, but like if I could not get like 7 or 8 hours, there'd be like I have word finding difficulty. Like I'd be falling asleep during lectures. It was crazy. I honed it down to science because of how like, and I'm just like I have to get my sleep. That's the one thing that I have to do.
I can relate to that. So when you switched out of that, like, where did you end up going to family medicine residency?
Yeah, so I ended up going to California. One of my good friends from med school, they like actually a group of us like flew into San Francisco and then drove like all the way down to like Los Angeles and then stayed at a bunch of like hotels and stuff like that, and I ended up in Vegas. And I was like, California is actually as good as they've been boasting about it. Because during med school, all you'd hear about, everyone's like, California's the best. I'm like, no, it's not a bad state. So I applied and I got into like a residency in Modesto.
Nice.
So I ended up doing family medicine there for 3 years. And it was actually a pretty good program. I thought the pathology was kind of insane. I think you'd really appreciate that.
I get so you probably had like a lot of let's say multi-ethnic demographic.
Oh, yeah.
Low income people as well.
Yeah, there's like farmers. There's high income too. There's like it was a lot of farming people, like cattle, and then there's also like almond fields, and there's like a huge winery out there. So there's like higher class people as well. And then obviously it was really interesting. I kind of learned a lot down there.
I got you. Did any particular mentors like stand out early on that you kind of had a through line with during the 3 years?
Yeah, I was, Modesto is in the valley. It's a really small town. I didn't expect to find any like high class but there were like some really good attendings that were on the faculty there, and they went to really prestigious universities actually, and I was kind of surprised to find them. And they were, it was like 180 degrees, man, compared to surgery. Like, the one thing I am thankful for is like, after being in that hole and everything I went through, like nothing can like shake me after that. And then they go to this residency, and it's like basically, I'm usually pretty humble, but I'm just going to say like this was a cakewalk doing this residency compared to surgery.
Nice.
But it was like my bread and butter. I loved it. And like doing like multiple different like specialties, OB-GYN, like pediatrics, and we were doing plastic surgery down there, surgeries. It was just really, really cool. Like you learn all these different things, and you see like a ton of pathology, and I just like learning. I just like learning new things and applying them. And so this was like, I loved it.
Oh, absolutely. So you were doing a good amount of like little surgical procedures, like sewing people up, and
yeah, we had this like 80-year-old plastic surgeon like cutting people's faces open, and he would literally like just be standing there and he's like, okay, yeah, and I'm sew it back up. I was like, what? his face is like kind of.
I love those old guys, dude.
Yeah. This guy's like 85 when he's still practicing, and he looked like great, but he was just standing there like mentoring people. It was just like it was awesome. But yeah, I had a really good time down there.
Awesome. So we're in Modesto, and then you probably started looking for your next move somewhere in your second year.
I was a little bit late. Probably like started looking at my third year. I think I got a little bit jaded because I'm family medicine boarded. I'm still boarded in family medicine, but the program in Modesto was very, very inpatient heavy. So you rotate in the hospital, and you also rotate in like the outpatient clinic, have primary care patients basically. And I just did not get along with the patient population down there. It was very, very frustrating. I got like too emotionally involved with the patients. And then they'd come in and they'd be getting sicker. I don't want to say they weren't listening, but they weren't taking care of themselves. And it wasn't intentional. It was just like they thought they'd just go through life and not have to worry about things. But I got very, very frustrated, and like at the end of the day, it just was very emotionally draining. So I actually ended up doing a fellowship in hospitalist medicine, and that's why I kind of pivoted and went. I work as a hospitalist now, but I'm still like boarded in primary in like family medicine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's a smart lifestyle move, man. Like,
and that was a major decision. Like one of the major reasons I made that decision was because of the scheduling aspects of it too.
Interesting. So what do you like 10 days on, or how does it work?
So from the first day that I started working, I've never been full time. I work at like 0.85 of full time, so that's like 14 to 15 shifts a month. So I have the ability to, like, as long as you give them 3 months heads up, they like let you make your own schedule. So like, back in February, I took like a month off. I went to Utah, did some skiing. Parents came to visit, hung out with their grandkids, my kids. Like, took some time off, like did some hiking. It gives a lot more flexibility. And then you also still get to kind of practice and see all the different types of patients. And I think I like the acuity. Like one of the things I got really upset about in the outpatient world is you have to wait forever for tests to come back. Scheduling, like, and then patients can't get appointments for months, like, and you have to like cramming them into the schedule and rushing through. It's just inpatient. I just love it. You put in tests, you get specialists immediately, you get results right away. And I like being a detective, so it's just like I get my results right. Even like you guys chuck at me, like I'll call the pathologist. I'm like, hey, what did the biopsy come back as?
Yeah,
just, like, curious.
No, absolutely. I'm actually getting to know the hospitalists at my current institution. I work with them fairly closely and see them in the doctor's lounge, and yeah, I mean it's a great way. It's a great environment to be in with the hospitalist, and then I enjoy hospital-based pathology because of the acuity and the complicated cases you get. It just makes you better, kind of keeps your game kind of sharp. So yeah, I could see the appeal to hospitalist medicine.
Yes, I'm just unrelated, but I'm curious. Are you seeing like a lot younger patients with a lot more like malignancies now? I'm seeing like really, really young patients and a lot of like leukemias, like early cervical cancers, like a lot.
Oh yeah, bro.
And they're young. They're like these are like things that you see in like 60 or 70-year-old patients, and they're coming in like they're 30. I'm like, what is going on,
bro? I just got coded the OR like 4 days ago. It was some 30-some-year-old, early 30s. Poor guy just showed up with a bowel obstruction. He's got a big circumferential tumor in the cecum, and fortunately, all the lymph nodes are negative. But yeah, I've been seeing this all the time. It's crazy. Like 2 weeks ago, it was like another 30-year-old female, same colon cancer, but we're seeing it in all organ systems. So
it's just very bizarre. Something's going on, man.
Something's going on, dude. Something's going on. We're gonna find it. No, I'm always wary, and I don't know. We're gonna find out something. It's gonna be like some environmental thing. It's gonna be a combination of like food additives or something. I don't know, man, but I know that most of these diseases you're not supposed to see until like 60, 70 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it's not just, I mean, it's, like the old, like Dennis Burkitt, that surgeon from the UK, it's like his story of going from the West or Western Europe to, moving his practice to Uganda. And then, he wrote some papers about how he didn't see a single case of colon cancer in the last 20 years of his career in Uganda. And like they eat a much higher fiber diet, as compared to the West. But I think there's got to be, it's more than that.
I think it might be like related to the microbiome. I don't think there's enough research on it. I mean, it's still in its infancy, but I think it has like one aspect of it that we just haven't realized yet.
Do you think that the foods that are commonly eaten, like the commonly eaten foods, like highly processed, industrial meats, do you think that this is producing like a different bacterial milieu that was never seen before in human history?
Yeah, and I think it's being passed down, right? I mean, if it started like 30 years ago, I think if people have been just eating a lot of highly processed food, it changes the the microbial flora of like the entire intestinal tract. Like I'm starting from like the mouth all the way to the anus, you know. And then over time, like if people just keep eating all these like processed things and they stay away from whole foods, natural foods, I think this milieu that you're talking about gets passed down, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think that creates like an environment. I mean, and this is me theorizing. I don't have any evidence to back this up yet, but I mean, there's some studies that have kind of hinted.
No, I've read. I mean, I'm not like super well versed on that. Like, I mean, I read as much as I can about this microbiome, but it's very math based, and it's like, as you know, like once you get into like the day in day out of practice, you're never going to be as well versed on these topics as you were when you were, you know, in academics, where you're basically like kind of stewing in it. But right now, it's when you're in practice, you're more interested in just having a correct diagnosis and, you know, managing these patients correct. You know what I mean? You don't have all the time in the world to be sifting through these esoteric papers unless it's
the data crunching and trying to...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the calculating the stuff out. Yeah. So but I think that's clinical experience is very powerful. I mean, the observations from someone like you and, you know, people like you that are seeing these things clinically, like that's where the knowledge starts. And then, you know, it trickles up into academia, and it takes like 10 to 15 years before these papers to come out, before they become guidelines.
People see stuff and then they do the research on it, because it's just like, you have to find a reason why this stuff is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so let's keep moving down. When did you actually start writing that newsletter? And were you just trying to compile your information because you were already explaining this stuff to your patients?
Well, I think it's a good segue from that previous like conversation we were having. It's just like I was seeing all this, all these pathologies. Like people were coming in like they're really, really young, and dude, I'm like seeing people with heart attacks like before 50. Like I once had this 30-year-old guy, jacked black dude, came in with elevated heart enzymes, which leak out when you have a heart attack. And I'm like, there's no way this guy has a heart attack. And then I started treating him for pericarditis. This was before COVID, pre-COVID. And he had a clot like in his left anterior descending artery, like. And I found out later that he was like doing testosterone, like, you know, like injecting, and that's why he was so jacked, because he was just like completely muscular. And then like he threw a thrombus in his and had a massive heart attack. And then you just see all these people coming in with uncontrolled diabetes, like really bad diverticular disease, like their colon's just completely messed up. And you talk to them, and their lifestyles are just like completely like backwards, and they don't even. I mean, I'd say like 80% of them don't even realize like that's the case. And so I started doing a lot of research, because I see people coming in with heart attacks who are on statins, and these are supposed to be like, they're being pushed as miracle drugs. You know, these are going to prevent you from getting a heart attack, but it's not going to do that if you're eating like a lot of highly processed food, you're not exercising, your cholesterol's like, it's just like your metabolism's coming out of the garbage can, basically.
Yeah.
So it's just like I just started doing a lot of research, but I realized like I would do the research, but I would never like write this stuff down. And I was like, I just wanted to find a platform where I could write down the information that I do my own research on, and then like have it available for people to just like read. And
nice,
you know, common knowledge for us as physicians or medical students or whatever is not common knowledge for, you know, the everyday you know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is a valuable service to do, is to distill that, you know, into something concise that, you know, people can just understand.
Also, I'm a shit writer. I'm trying to get better at it. So this is like the only way that I can consistently do it.
Absolutely. You got to put some pressure on yourself to just get the reps in, just to just hammer it out. Now keep it up, man. It's useful, and it makes you better. It makes It makes your practice better. Just, I'm convinced that like a daily writing habit just like makes you an overall better person. I mean, even if it's just like a half an hour a day or something.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm all on that personal improvement kick, right? Constant self-improvement.
Psycho-Cybernetics, dude.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books, man.
Isn't that great? Yeah. All right. So, yeah, all right. Speaking of self-help, so now today, in your day-to-day, I mean, you got a much better schedule, but how do you avoid burnout? Or did you already prevent burnout by kind of planning your career this way so that you'd be a hospitalist and space out your shifts?
Yeah, I think a lot of the planning kind of unfolded from a lot of the bad things that happened in my past, like, you know, from the surgery and stuff like that. I realized like working all the time it's not healthy. Like when you're just constantly working, you don't take time to relax. So I think that kind of played into me choosing like the hospitalist gig, and I'm even like trying to figure out a way to even cut back even more. So like maybe like 0.7, which that'd be like around 10 shifts a month. I need to find something else to do, but that's part of the reason why like I started doing this newsletter.
You write a book.
But yeah, funny thing, I actually have written a book. It's a sci-fi novel, but maybe that's...
Dude, I want to see it. I'm working on one right now. Like, I'll buy your book.
I'm up to like 90,000. So I got to do you know how you have to go through the editing process?
Yeah.
I got to do the plot editing now. And then the whole like grammar editing later. It's just, I put it down. It's like 90,000 words. I'm like, anyways.
So nice. What is 90,000 words? Let's see, 90.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I was like, burnout, like hobbies. You gotta find hobbies, man. I think like you gotta, like you said before, you have to find different things to kind of keep you occupied and kind of take your mind away from like doing one thing. Because I don't think it's like how our brain is meant to function. You're supposed to do like focus on one thing at a time. So obviously, I do a lot of working out, at least like 2 or 3 times a week. Running, that's kind of like helps me from burnout. I have like a lot of systems at work. As I don't know if you know your audience, like if they're physicians, they know that hospitalists have a pretty high burnout rate.
Yeah, I have read about that. Hospitalists, well, it's almost like you name the specialty, and then there's like, it's kind of staggering how high. There's like 20 specialties in medicine that have like this really high burnout rate.
Yeah, it was pretty bad during COVID too. We were understaffed. We were seeing like a ton of people while everyone was getting to stay at home.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to like go into the hospital. It was pretty bad, and everyone was like really sick. But the computer systems, there's a way of kind of improving your efficiency. But this is just like the way I think about it is like, what am I going to have to do to make sure that I don't like just burn out? Because burning out is like the worst thing you can do. I mean, it's not just a job. You have to make sure you don't burn out for your family. You got to make sure you don't burn out for your friends and also yourself. But yeah, I think hobbies, efficiencies at work, exercising, sleep. I mean, it helps to kind of eat healthy and stay on a specific. It's kind of boring what you have to do to not burn out.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I think I like boring, dude. Boring is good. I mean, like I want the right type of adventure in my life, you know. And I think it's when you keep yourself healthy like that, you're available. You have the reserve tank to deal with crises when they inevitably will happen, and then you're more proactive for your family, and you're not like, like you can. Dude, I remember being at a wedding like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a friend of mine, and like I think it was like a South Indian thing, and all the uncles had to get together and like help hoist the girl up, and like it was. I mean, it's like I'm looking at these guys, and I don't think there was anyone in there that was like, it was, they almost dropped her. Like it was pretty bad. Like, and these are all like, quote, successful people, like in, like hard charging tech careers. And I don't know if there's any other doctors there. I might have been the only one, but it definitely made me take like a hard look at myself. Fortunately, I didn't drop my end of the little thing, but like I held that thing up like a G, but it definitely, like, I was thinking to myself, dude,
kind of push your eyes a little bit.
Yeah, push come to shove, like, you should be able to run 5 miles at a decent clip. You should be able to like lift, 2 to 3 times your body weight, or at least 2 times your body, or at least your body weight. Let's just leave it at that. However how much you weigh, you should be able to lift that from the ground. It's like practical skills.
Yeah, and it's like I think people have succumbed to this like ideology of you get older, and so these are things that are automatically gonna get worse with time, or you're gonna get weaker with time. And I mean, it's been proven like these. If you take care of yourself now, you'll have all that reserve, as you would say, to kind of sustain your life and actually like participate with like younger family members. Because my dad came to help. He came to help us move some stuff, and he's like 70, and he was helping me pick up this Chester drawer had to be at least 200 pounds. I'm like, how is my dad like able to lift this thing? And he's like 70. Anyways,
that's awesome, dude. Yeah. So there, does your hospital have a gym by chance?
No, it doesn't. That's one thing I feel like every hospital should have. It'd be so great if you go down for lunch and just like lift some weights for like a half hour or 45 minutes.
Yeah, you could probably make it happen. If you guys just all, refuse to work until they build one. It's like
they'll do all these wellness meetings for lunch, and you'll sit down and eat all this greasy food. I'm like, how about we just go down and do something?
Yeah, the idiots. It's all this like mandatory. Everything's all DEI, ESG. It's like check the box. It's like, oh, we had this optional, this whatever self check-in thing from 11 to 1. It's just like, dude, a Zoom call is not going to help you. Y'all need to like get a good sweat in. But yeah, these not-for-profits, man, like they make tons of money. Like there's not they have a way. Behind the scenes, these executives are giving each other bonuses, and it's all the not-for-profit thing is a sham. I think that the gym in a hospital is an absolute must, and whether people choose to use it is up to them. But like, I think you should definitely incentivize it.
I do walk past the physical therapy like room and be like, maybe I should go and use.
Well, hey, there's an option. Yeah, just befriend all the physical therapists.
They're like, hey,
those are actually the physical therapists were some of the people that I got along with the best at my med school. Like not even my own classmates. I would literally like just hang out socially with the physical therapists. I was like, man, you guys are all like healthy, and you're like,
yeah, it's funny, they all take care of themselves.
Yeah, it's like good posture.
None of the physical therapists in my hospital are like overweight, which is like interesting, right?
It's admirable. So I think that, I mean, I don't know. My angle on this, dude, is that if you put yourself in a position where you're doing mostly stuff that's like you have a natural curiosity about, it reduces the likelihood of burnout, like with those little tasks aggregated over time. And I mean, clinical medicine was just not a good fit for me. I didn't really like those rushed encounters, and I actually considered being a hospitalist at one point. But then I found pathology, and that was the cure for my burnout. Like it's a really nice field. Like our pathologists, they only hold business hours. Yeah. So like, it's awesome, right? It's like,
you get Papa. I'm like, do you have to wait 7? I'm like, well, we don't count the weekends, so
yeah, we don't get so. I mean,
so next week Monday.
It's like, I'm getting over this little cold, but we don't count the weekends. But as an enthusiast, I still show up, like usually on Sunday afternoons, I'll come in and I'll read and catch up on some stuff, just get a head start, so it's like, I'm still around. I'm easy to get a hold of. And a lot of times I'll sign out cases on like a either a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday night, so everyone has their stuff ready for Monday when they go round. So I don't know. It's like this isn't talked about early on in medical training, but you really got to find something that suits your personality. But the hooker of it is that unless you're doing the work, you don't really know how you're going to react to it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think like during you need to expose yourself to as many fields as possible. I think back in the I knew that I wanted to do like something that would involve all the specialties. I'm really glad I didn't get into emergency medicine, because that is just like it's the turnover and the amount of patients you have to see and how quickly you have to see them. I found out that just was not my style. I like to sit down and kind of like investigate and think slowly and just like ruminate and think about everything. And
right.
Like
the cerebral aspect of it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably, and like you said, like the curiosity just keeps me interested. And I think you have to like what you're doing, right? And that's like one of the things that you're trying to communicate to like the up and coming physicians of future and medical, and those that are in medical school right now.
Yeah, dude.
Really have to think about
that. It's that in between stuff that it's like you can't really read it in a book per se. Like there's all kinds of stuff that could be better about the way medicine is delivered in this country, but a lot of this is fixable, dude. It's like, do you know how many physicians? So first of all, it never had to be the way that it is right now, but physicians were complacent and they let the government take it over. It didn't have to be this way. We could have all just, practiced medicine like it was in the old way, direct to consumer, where it was a sliding scale, fee for service, and if people couldn't pay, you just did it for free, and then you made up the money on more, patients that had more income. It was. You know what I mean? So, but you didn't have all these middlemen trying to get their cut. And that's what happens when you kind of turn over the decision-making and the billing, like the rates for each service, and you turn it over to the government. It's like,
I know.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, like, I may be jumping ahead. Like, I saw, like, one of your questions about direct-to-consumer. And I didn't even know about this. I ran into one of my resident colleagues. She was... So it's kind of similar to what you were saying. She was working in a hospital system, and she was doing this shared position with her husband. So like they would split shifts. So one of them stay home with the kids, and then one of them work. And then this hospital system came in and bought them out, and they were like dictating, this is what you have to do. And she's like, no, screw that. And so she like started doing research and like opened up her own practice, and she's doing something called direct primary care. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the original. It was originally practiced that way. The government messed it up.
So she has her own online platform. She can log into it anywhere. She has like a pool of patients who pay her like a monthly fee, and she can find. I don't know how she was doing this, but like a CAC score, or like an MRI. She would call around to these imaging centers and be like, "Hey, how much can I pay cash for these things?" And they cost like $90 or like $100. And the insurance is charging like $500 to like $3,000. And then she has the ability to buy like prescription medications in bulk and give them to her patients for half like the price of what the insurance wants to pay for.
Wow.
And you can see her at any point in time. You call and talk to her on her phone. She can send in medications. She like documents on the EMR of the system. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and she did this because like some hospital system came in and wanted to tell her how to practice medicine and dictate like her hours.
Yep.
And so she's like going around advocating for like this I guess going back to the old way, which is seems very reasonable to me.
It is. And
I'm ranting.
No, I totally agree. Rant. This is the place to rant, dude. Like 3D Per Cuts is a platform for people in the trenches of medicine that are actually doing the work. just say what's on their mind, And I realize that sometimes you realize the flaws in the system the deeper you get into practice. But these people want to overcomplicate the delivery when, look, the most valuable service that you provide in medicine is the history and physical examination. It's the backbone of everything. It's more important than than histology, because it's everything. It has to come from somewhere. But physicians just let the government ratchet down the reimbursement for the history and physical to like a couple $100, for an annual physical, which that's not an accurate representation of the skill involved, because your history and physical that you do now after a few years in practice is worth more than it was 3 years ago. And there's a savant hospitalists that are 30 years into practice, like their skill and their service that they're providing is more valuable than the person that just got out of residency. It's just the way it is. So how is it that the government can just say that, like, I don't know what the CPT code is for the H&P, or the annual phys. I'm sure there's some variations on it, but
right.
But it's inaccurate, and you're chasing the best and brightest people out of medicine by not compensating them what the market otherwise would. There are people out there willing to pay extra for a highly skilled hospitalist or internal medicine physician, or like somebody who really has a lot of experience. That's where these boutique, concierge practices come up with, right? Because people with means, that they don't want to deal with, like, so first of all, they want to actually see a physician, and not like somebody with 1/10 the training, and a DEA license. So
exactly, yeah.
There's market imbalances in medicine right now, but the truth isn't out there yet. But the truth is coming out because of the internet, and it's getting harder and harder for people to hide. I'm talking about like large corporate healthcare systems. It's getting harder for them to hide what they're really trying to do by siloing healthcare. And I realize, like, some of the questions that I sent you are obviously lead-in questions. It's not really fair of me to just. I'm like, polluting it with opinion.
It's funny because, like, a lot of these questions, it's funny, like, I think our train of thought is kind of like on the same page, because a lot of these questions I've thought about. And, like when I was over in Connecticut doing general surgery, there was a corporation over there, a health system that was buying up all the smaller clinics. And then over here in California, like the hospital system I work for right now, they're like buying up like dialysis centers as well. Certain areas. It's just like it's not good for healthcare, because
it's really
what ends
bad.
up happening is they end up dictating how you're supposed to practice medicine.
Yeah,
and that's it's not good to have specific guidelines for every single patient, because all patients are unique and you have to take everything into.
Yeah, dude, it's they try to commodify what it is we do, and the sad part is that doctors are so complacent they let this happen. I mean, even in pathology, it's like less than 10% of pathologists actually contribute to our political action committee that negotiates fair reimbursement for our services. So it's like these are the same people that complain, on whatever internet forums, but then they never actually show up. Not even like $10 a month or $100 a month, like. Just like you make enough, like just like support the lobbying, because you're up against like dude, these insurance lobbyists are killers. Okay, like these hospital industry lobbyists, like they're trying to squeeze you out. It's just human nature. Like that's what like people do.
It's just like these administrative people, like that have no ounce of clinical like background. They're going in there and making up these laws and rules that undermine like the physician's role in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So I don't know if it's going to happen our generation or maybe the next generation, but eventually, like, it can't go on this way forever. The patients are starting to wake up to this. It has to kind of come from the grassroots. I mean, those of us that are working, we can do as much as we can, but I don't know. It takes getting the word out, and then eventually these things they go in waves. But it's very obvious that the current system has to change, and I think physician-led medicine, physician-owned small businesses, this is just the best way to practice, because then your reputation's on the line, right? So your friend who's in a concierge practice direct to consumer, has an incentive to go the extra mile for her patients, right? It's her name on the line.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating, especially like when you're seeing, I think like the direction of where things are going. I'm not saying it's completely responsible, but I mean, it may be like one of the key factors in like what's going on with population health as a whole over the last like 30 years and how it's been just like declining.
Yeah, dude. You start to see, kind of the dark side of things when you're in this game,
right? Yeah.
Is it
that what I want to do in the hospital system is not necessarily, it's not something I can do, and so like I think that's why I've been like moving over to trying to kind of, I don't know if the correct word is like pass on the knowledge or educate people, because there's a lot of healthcare change that can happen without the pharmaceutical means being like a sustained thing. You can, and I think if I was to do that in the hospital system, it just would not be looked that well upon, because like a lot of the evidence backs up a lot of the pharmaceutical grade medications that are used to treat like a lot of chronic diseases.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
another rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's kind of another rabbit hole. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, we got to feed our families and get through it. But I totally agree with you. I mean, people, it's the interesting thing about prevention is like it's just not something that people are generally interested in, unless there's an incentive behind it. People are more interested in fixing a pain point, meaning like they have a bad diagnosis and now it's like a wake up call. They have to change. But unless there's like
all the time.
Yeah, but unless there's like a hard
to die.
Yeah, die. Either
or
death,
bad heart attack.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be just extreme. It's like our brains are hardwired to like move away from pain. It's kind of like if you have 2 good job opportunities out of residency or out of fellowship, and they're both good, it's actually harder to make that decision than it is if you have a good one and a horrible one, because you just move away from the pain. Right. And it's like, I can tell you like 5 good benefits of, eating whole foods and working out 3 to 5 days a week. And there's like 5 tangible benefits. But it's like, unless you have that pain point, people just don't have
no reason.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to take the action.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, all right. Well, wow. We got almost clocked in at a full hour. So, yeah, man. So thanks for coming on the podcast. There's some other subtopics that obviously we can, we could revisit at another time, but appreciate you coming on, man. And
thanks for having me on, Chuck. This was actually a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to the family duties, and we'll see you out there on these X streets. And Imran, you want to just make a plug for your newsletter while you're on here?
Yeah. It's the Sunday Wellness newsletter. You can find me on imranalley.com. And then you can also check out my Twitter handle. It's at ImranRAlley.
All right. IMRAN and then ALLY. Yeah. .com. Got it. All right. Well, you have a pleasant rest of your evening, and we'll see you out there on X, and we'll be in touch, man.
Yeah. You have a great evening too, Chuck.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.